Right now, somewhere in the desert Southwest, there is this massive building.
Yeah, probably just baking in the sun out there.
Exactly. And it's consuming more electricity than a small city.
Oh, easily.
But the crazy part is, it doesn't have a single human inside. Like, the doors are locked, the lights might not even be on, but the air conditioning is just roaring.
Right. It has to be to cool down those thousands of processors.
Yeah. And for a very long time, the tech industry has kind of sold us on this idea of the cloud.
The invisible cloud, yeah?
Right. We talked about software and algorithms and artificial intelligence as if they just existed in this weightless, invisible realm.
Like magic, almost.
Exactly. We treated technology like a set of digital blueprints. Theoretical, clean, and completely detached from the physical world.
Which is, well, it's just not true anymore.
Not at all.
No.
If you look closely at the landscape today, those blueprints have been handed over to the construction crews.
They absolutely have.
We aren't just looking at a promise on paper anymore. We are watching the physical, concrete, and steel construction of our digital future.
It is a massive transition. The theoretical has become undeniably heavily physical. I mean, the cloud is suddenly demanding a lot of real estate.
Which brings us to our mission for you today. So, welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
We've got this really fascinating source in front of us. It's a Daily Tech Reader's 6 a.m. news brief for Thursday, July 9, 2026.
And it is dense.
Oh, it's a massive wall of bullet points. If you just glance at it, it covers everything from global markets and semiconductor manufacturing,
Streaming wars, the weather in the Southwest.
geopolitical conflicts. It's a lot. It can really feel like standing in front of a fire hose of disconnected data.
Yeah, you just get blasted with headlines.
Right. So our goal today is to shut off that fire hose and distill this down for you.
Figure out what it actually means.
Exactly. We are going to find the massive hidden narrative that connects all these scattered headlines just to help you understand the forces shaping your world today.
I love it.
So, okay, let's unpack this. What is the real story hiding behind this morning's headlines?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the defining story of July 2026 across technology, manufacturing, energy, it isn't some flashy new consumer app.
Right. It's not the new smartphone.
No, or a theoretical breakthrough in a university lab. It's sustained long-term investment in physical infrastructure.
Physical infrastructure.
Yeah.
Like concrete and steel.
Exactly. It's this stark realization from the business world that to support the next generation of economic growth, specifically AI-driven growth, you have to build the foundational structures first.
Because you can't just run AI on thin air.
You cannot. You can't have artificial intelligence without the power plants, the data centers, and, like you mentioned, the cooling systems to physically house it all.
Which totally flips how we usually talk about the tech sector.
Oh, 100%.
Because we're used to software being invisible, right? Like it's
Yeah.
infinitely scalable. You just copy and paste the code.
Yeah, zero marginal cost, all that stuff.
Right. But this news brief makes it incredibly clear. AI infrastructure investment is currently one of the absolute strongest drivers of domestic capital spending right now.
It's pulling in massive amounts of money.
It really is. We are moving from the abstract idea of AI to how it is physically altering the business landscape. Like, data center construction is exploding across the country.
Right, they're popping up everywhere.
And the brief notes this fascinating shift in corporate mindset. It says, enterprise AI has transitioned from being a competitive advantage to an expected business capability.
Yeah, that phrasing, expected business capability, that is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
It really is, right? It implies it's basically table stakes now.
Exactly. What we're seeing in the business world is a harsh pivot away from mere experimentation.
Like the novelty is worn off.
Yes. A few years ago, every company was just playing around with AI, launching pilot programs to see, what it could do.
Yeah, everyone wanted a ChatGPT wrapper for their website.
Exactly. But today, the honeymoon phase is over. The emphasis is heavily on operational maturity. Organizations are demanding reliability and, most importantly, measurable productivity gains.
They want to see the ROI.
Right. I mean, the open source AI ecosystems are still highly active, but corporate competition centers intensely on efficiency and operating costs right now.
Well, I want to pause on that productivity aspect for a second.
Sure.
Because the brief specifically highlights AI coding assistants as a prime example of this reshaping in action.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge area.
Because we hear coding assistant, and we might just think of like an autocomplete feature on our phones.
Right, like it's just guessing the next word.
Yeah. But it's much deeper than that on a mechanical level, isn't it?
Oh, much deeper. I mean, traditional software engineering required humans to manually type out every single line of logic.
Which takes forever.
It does, and they'd search for obscure bugs for hours, constantly reference documentation.
It's a really tedious process.
Exactly. But what these AI coding assistants do now is they inject the entire architecture of a company's code base.
Wait, the whole thing?
The whole thing. They understand the context. So when an engineer wants to build a new feature, the AI can generate entire blocks of functional tested code in seconds.
That is wild.
It is. It can spot security vulnerabilities before the code is even deployed. It can seamlessly translate a legacy system written in a 20-year-old programming language into a modern framework.
Wow, so it's not just spell check for code.
No, it acts less like a spell checker and more like a senior architect sitting right over your shoulder.
Giving you the answers.
Yeah. And that is why productivity is the primary metric for technology purchasing today.
The financial return is just undeniable.
Okay, I hear you on the operational maturity and the productivity gains, but here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, lay it on me.
If I'm looking at this as a business owner or an investor, there's a massive blind spot here.
Which the rush to build all this infrastructure is happening at the exact same time that society is still trying to figure out the fundamental rules of the road.
Ah, the regulatory side.
Right. Let's look back at the Daily Tech Readers Archive from just last month, June 1st, 2026.
I remember this.
Florida became the first state to sue OpenAI over ChatGPT safety failures. Now, obviously, we aren't here to litigate that specific case or, take a political side on it.
Sure, we're just looking at the facts.
Exactly, just impartially looking at the facts on the ground. But for you, as a listener, you have to ask, how does this massive accelerating rush to build billion-dollar data centers square with the fact that governance and safety oversight are clearly still maturing in real time?
It's a huge contradiction.
Are we basically laying the train tracks while the train is already moving at 200 miles per hour? Like, who is taking on the liability here?
Well, that tension over liability is exactly why the brief explicitly lists cybersecurity as a top operational priority for enterprises deploying AI at scale.
Because they're terrified of getting sued.
Pretty much. It is no longer an IT afterthought. It's a foundational board-level requirement. You cannot deploy an expected business capability if it represents a catastrophic legal or security vulnerability.
That makes sense. It's too risky.
Right. So what you're seeing is this parallel evolution. The legal frameworks like the state lawsuits we just mentioned and specialized oversight for things like medical AI, they are all evolving simultaneously with the physical infrastructure boom out of pure necessity.
So they're building the plane while flying it, basically.
Yes, it is an incredibly complex high-wire balancing act. Companies are trying to ring-fence their risk while still capturing the rapid growth that the technology enables.
Look, a high-wire balancing act requires an enormous amount of energy, quite literally.
Yes, it does.
You cannot plug in thousands of massive data centers without an astronomical draw on the power grid.
You really can't.
And this desperate thirst for energy is exactly what pulls us into the next major theme of this morning's brief: the brutal collision between our infinite digital demands and our very finite physical resources.
The energy squeeze.
Exactly.
And to understand why this squeeze is happening, we really have to look at the mechanics of how AI actually runs.
Yeah. Please break that down for us, because I think a lot of people just assume a server is a server.
Right. They think it's all the same.
So why does an AI data center draw so much more power than, say, the data centers we've been using for the last 20 years to host websites and streaming video?
It really comes down to how the hardware operates. So traditional web servers often just sit idle.
Yep.
They wait for you to click a link, they serve up a web page, and then they rest.
Just kind of hanging out until they're needed.
Exactly. But artificial intelligence models, particularly during their training phases and when they're processing complex queries, they rely on specialized chips called GPUs, graphics processing units.
Right. We hear about this all the time.
Yeah, and these GPUs run continuous, incredibly dense mathematical calculations in parallel. They do not rest.
They're just always on.
Always on, and they run red hot, 24/7. So not only are you feeding massive amounts of electricity directly into the chips to perform the math, but you also have to pump a staggering amount of electricity into industrial cooling systems just to keep the building from catching fire.
Just to keep it from burning down.
Exactly.
Wow. Which makes the timing of this infrastructure boom incredibly precarious.
It really does.
Think about our national power grid, like a highway system. For decades, it was built and maintained primarily to handle normal commuter cars.
Right, like residential neighborhoods turning on their TVs, standard office buildings, traditional factories.
Exactly. But suddenly, virtually overnight, that exact same highway is flooded with fleets of massive, heavy cargo trucks.
That's a great way to put it.
And those are the AI data centers. But to make matters worse, the brief gives us the current weather context.
Oh, right, the heat waves.
Yeah. So while the West Coast is enjoying pleasant weather right now, intense summer heat persists across the desert Southwest. And there's a brutal European heat wave actively challenging their infrastructure.
Which just adds so much strain.
Yeah. So you have these massive AI cargo trucks roaring down the highway while the asphalt is literally melting beneath them.
It's a perfect storm.
It is. So are we looking at a fundamental shift in how we view energy security?
We absolutely are. What's fascinating here is how long-term energy planning has been entirely hijacked by the needs of the digital economy.
Really? Entirely hijacked.
Pretty much. Historically, energy security was viewed almost exclusively through a geopolitical lens, like where are the oil reserves?
Are the international shipping lanes open?
Exactly. And while those elements remain critical, energy security today is increasingly defined by domestic grid resilience.
Interesting.
Yeah, keeping the digital economy online is now a matter of national security.
Because if the grid fails, the AI stops thinking. And if enterprise AI is now a foundational business capability, a grid failure means the entire economy just grinds to a halt.
Precisely. And that stark vulnerability is forcing a massive structural reaction in the global energy markets.
How so?
Well, the news brief highlights that utility companies aren't just putting out fires anymore, they are completely rewriting their long-term forecasts.
What does that look like?
For one, nuclear energy is attracting serious, renewed investment.
Wait, nuclear? Seriously?
Yes. Why? Because nuclear provides massive, uninterrupted baseload power that doesn't care if the sun goes down or the wind stops blowing.
Which is exactly what an AI data center needs.
Exactly. It needs constant power. We're also seeing a huge surge in battery storage deployment. Because if you rely on renewable energy, like solar or wind, you need industrial-scale batteries to capture that power and discharge it smoothly when the AI models demand it.
So the digital world is forcefully demanding more of the physical world's energy than at any point in human history.
That's exactly what's happening.
Okay, so let's step back and look at the output of all this consumption. If we are pouring trillions of dollars, millions of tons of concrete, and entire power grids worth of electricity into these machines, what is actually coming out the other side?
That's the billion-dollar question.
Because reading the rest of this brief gives you a profound sense of whiplash.
The duality of the global canvas right now is incredibly stark.
It really is. On the one hand, the scientific breakthroughs fueled by this technology are just staggering. AI is no longer just generating text. It is actively accelerating hard scientific discovery.
Yeah, the real science.
The brief notes widespread adoption of AI-assisted diagnostics in hospitals. It highlights AI advancing drug discovery.
Yeah.
And mechanically, this is revolutionary, right?
No, it changes everything. Instead of scientists physically mixing chemicals in a lab for a decade through trial and error to see how a protein folds, an AI can accurately simulate millions of molecular interactions in a matter of days.
It's mind-blowing.
It really is. And we're seeing fusion energy research maintain momentum, partly because AI can manage the complex magnetic fields required to contain a fusion reaction.
Which was always the hardest part, right?
Exactly. Plus, quantum computing is progressing steadily. NASA is actively continuing preparations for the Artemis missions to return humans to the moon.
Honestly, you read this section and it feels like we're living in the golden age of a sci-fi novel.
It does. But that optimism is sharply contrasted by the geopolitical realities section of the brief.
That is the whiplash I'm talking about. We have all this futuristic technology curing diseases and reaching for the stars, yet the world remains incredibly volatile in very traditional, historically entrenched ways.
Yeah, the old problems haven't gone away.
Not at all. Ukraine and Russia continue the military operations. NATO remains deeply focused on conventional European security. The Middle East is being closely watched by global energy markets.
Though there is that fascinating note from the archives about a tentative May 2026 U.S.-Iran peace agreement regarding the Strait of Hormuz.
Right, which is huge for maritime security. But impartially looking at all these events, they show a world that is still violently grappling with age-old conflicts over physical borders, resources, and shipping lanes.
It highlights a profound reality. Technological progress does not erase traditional human conflicts. It simply operates alongside them.
They just share the same space.
Right. And these ongoing conflicts and diplomatic maneuvers are factual realities that directly shape cross-border investment. The brief notes that investment sentiment remains cautiously constructive.
Meaning they're optimistic but careful.
Exactly. Governments and venture capitalists are looking at the incredible leaps forward in precision medicine and space exploration, but they are doing so while heavily prioritizing supply chain resilience.
Because you can't cure cancer if you can't get the chips to run the AI.
Exactly. You cannot build the AI that discovers the next breakthrough drug if your supply chain for advanced semiconductors is severed by a border dispute half a world away.
It's the ultimate paradox of human nature. I was struck by this contrast when reading the archive from June 2, 2026.
Oh, what was in that one?
Well, I saw an update about cutting-edge autonomous transportation research. Billions of dollars being spent on LiDAR, neural networks, machine learning, all to make supply chains perfectly efficient.
Right.
And literally right next to it was a top story of the day.
Hmm.
Federal authorities uncovering a 2,000-foot drug smuggling tunnel connecting Mexico to the U.S.
Wow.
Think about that for a second. We use advanced AI to solve complex problems of efficiency and logistics, but humans still rely on raw, brute force, physical ingenuity. Guys with shovels, dirt, and ventilation tubes to solve problems of restriction.
Just digging a hole in the ground.
Exactly. Technology races forward at light speed, but human nature, our flaws, our traditional challenges, they remain so deeply entrenched.
That is the perfect distillation of 2026. We can model complex protein folds in milliseconds, but we still have to physically move goods across oceans, secure physical borders, and navigate the inherently messy realities of human behavior.
Which brings us perfectly back down to earth and directly to you, the listener.
Yep, the day-to-day.
Because with data centers eating up the power grid, legal battles over safety, and global conflicts swirling, what does daily life and work actually look like for the average person right now?
It's a good question.
Underneath the macroeconomic trends, the brief gives us a remarkably clear snapshot of the human element.
Work and culture are where these massive, invisible trends actually touch down in daily life.
Exactly. On the work front, AI is undeniably reshaping knowledge work. But it's not the dystopian scenario of a robot just taking your desk.
No, it's more subtle than that.
Right. Instead, the brief notes that skills-based hiring is expanding. Employers care less about where you got your degree and more about what you can actually execute.
Which is a positive shift, honestly.
Yeah, it levels the playing field. Also, hybrid work patterns remain stable. The tug-of-war between the home office and the corporate headquarters has largely settled.
Finally.
Right. But the real key is that continuous learning has become the ultimate competitive advantage. You have to keep adapting your skills because the tools are updating every single month.
You can't just rest on your laurels.
No, you really can't.
Yeah.
But then you step away from work and you look at the culture section. Summer travel is incredibly active across North America. The World Cup football tournament is the undisputed leading sports story globally.
Oh, absolutely dominating the news.
Yeah, streaming competition is fierce. Summer blockbuster movies are drawing massive crowds. And thankfully, podcast audiences and deep dive listeners like you remain incredibly strong.
Which is reassuring in a way.
It is. So what does this all mean? To me, it says that despite this overwhelming multi-trillion-dollar wave of digital transformation, human culture remains remarkably stubbornly consistent.
We still like what we like.
Exactly. The brief notes that AI is influencing creative production. Sure, music producers are incorporating AI-generated beats. But at the end of the day, people don't want to just sit in a dark room interacting with an algorithm.
No, they want to get out there.
They want the physical experience. They want to pack into a sweating, roaring stadium to watch the World Cup. They want to travel across the country for summer music festivals. They want to listen to independent creators share genuine stories.
Right, the human connection.
Yeah. The medium might be getting a massive technological upgrade, but the core human desires driving our culture haven't changed a bit.
This raises an important question, though, about how we successfully navigate the balance between our digital tools and our physical lives moving forward.
How so?
Well, the brief makes it clear that employers are fiercely focused on measurable productivity. So for you, the listener, your day-to-day work is increasingly about how well you can leverage these new AI tools rather than feeling threatened by them.
Adapting, not fighting it.
Exactly. The successful organizations and the successful professionals are the ones who view AI not as a competitor, but as foundational infrastructure. just like the electrical grid itself.
That is the perfect way to look at it. You don't try to outmuscle electricity, right? You build a factory, you plug your machinery into the grid,
Right.
and you let the current do the heavy lifting for you.
Exactly. You utilize the infrastructure to scale your own capabilities. But doing so requires that continuous learning we mentioned earlier.
Right. You have to know how to operate the machinery.
Yep. The equilibrium we're finding in 2026 is one where the tools are tools, but the core human requirements like disciplined execution, critical thinking, and the ability to adapt remain exactly the same.
It's all about how you choose to use the concrete that's being poured. So let's recap our journey today.
Let's do it.
We started with a daily news brief,
Mhm.
a massive fire hose list of July 2026 headlines, and we uncovered the massive foundation being built underneath them.
The physical reality.
Yeah. We saw a world that is rapidly, almost frantically, building the physical concrete structures for an AI-driven future.
And the strain that puts on the system.
Exactly. We explored how this infrastructure boom is placing unprecedented pressure on our power grids, forcing a total rethink of national energy security and driving massive investments into nuclear power and battery storage just to keep the machines running.
It's a huge shift in priorities.
It really is. Then we looked at the global canvas, balancing staggering scientific progress in drug discovery and fusion energy with the sobering traditional realities of ongoing geopolitical conflicts.
Whiplash of modern life.
The whiplash indeed. And finally, we saw that despite all this macro-level disruption, human culture, our love for sports, travel, and genuine connection, remains the anchor in the storm.
It is a profound moment of transition, and I think there is one final critical thought we should leave the listener to mull over.
Oh, I like the sound of that. What is it?
Well, we've spent this entire deep dive talking about how the digital world is forcing the physical world to adapt, right? Utilities scrambling for baseload power, vast tracts of land being cleared for data centers, laws being rewritten.
Right. The digital is molding the physical.
Exactly. So if AI infrastructure is now directly dictating utility planning, driving billion-dollar nuclear energy investments, and reshaping global capital allocation, at what point does the digital economy stop operating within the physical world and start completely dictating the physical world's landscape?
Wow. Yeah. Are we building the house for us, or are we just laying the foundation for the AI?
Something to think about.
That is a fascinating question to chew on the next time you turn on the lights or load up a new app or read about another data center breaking ground. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep questioning the headlines, keep looking past the blueprints to see what's actually being built, and we will catch you next time.